everyone. Stephen and Brian here with Brevin Homes. We're back for episode number 3 of our podcast. And just excited to be back and share some more knowledge on this third week of the episode, or the third week of the podcast, rather. So, thanks everybody for tuning in once again. And we've got, I think, a beneficial topic this week for a lot of people. It's going to shed some light on what they can expect going into the design or the pre-construction stuff, as well as construction. Just kind of set the precedent up front of what they can expect time-wise. So, today we're going to cover basically an overview of the pre-construction and the construction process and what that timeline looks like for kind of each of those individual topics. So, we've broken it down to about basically 10 to 11 tips. We might have a bonus or 2 in there at the end. But we're going to break it down into those different categories or items, and then we'll discuss a little bit more about each, and then also talk about the timeline of each, and how long you can expect each one to take, and then kind of wrap it up at the end of about overall how long you can expect this entire process to take of building a custom home. So anyways, Brian, glad to be here with you.
Absolutely. We're 3 for 3 on our accountability with each other, getting this going. So again, like you said, excited to be here. And we have 10 or 11 steps, if you will. Now, other builders may have a different set of steps or process that they take, but at the end of the day, your goal is to have a dream custom home built. And so there are steps that have to be followed. It's just in what order and how long it takes. So let's jump right in. Number 1, deciding if a custom home is right for you. This is something we talked about in episode 2, but what we found and why we put this as number 1 is there's a lot of people that have the intent or the idea that, hey, I want to build a custom home, but as they learn more about what it entails, we keep going back to the budget or the timeline. A lot of people eventually, as they're more informed and educated, they say, this just isn't right for me. So you have to start there, and you have to really do your homework on, hey, do I want to go through with this? And with the right parties, obviously being a builder that you choose. Stephen, what else would you add to that?
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. And, we don't want this to be by any means a scare tactic, right? Of course, our goal is to educate people and make them want to build a custom home. So I do agree, though, that, there are a lot of people that say, hey, you know what, I don't have anywhere from, and we'll cover this in more detail, but, just throwing numbers out, I don't have 2 years to wait for a home, right? I want to be into a home like tomorrow, and so maybe a resale home is best for those people, right? Or we have people that, I would love a custom home, but I'm just not there yet with my budget, right? And that's not something they're comfortable stretching, or they don't have the means for a custom home. So, there's different things there. And we've also even heard some people say, hey, you know what? I don't want to make hundreds of decisions. I just kind of want something that I can move into, so that's why we build spec homes. There's other builders that build different things, and there's production homes and there's resale homes. So, there's homes out there for basically anybody who's searching, right? And it just depends on what you want. But on the other hand, people find a lot of value in a custom home because they get exactly what they want. They get to customize it. They get the floor plan. They get the functionality. They get everything tailored to their family and their wants and their design style. And they get something that they're very, very proud of and happy to host friends and family and, have holidays there and all kinds of stuff. So, right, that's the other side of it, is that people are just ecstatic to build a custom home for the most part when everything aligns, right? The timeline, the budget, the decision making and all that kind of stuff. There are people that love to take that on and love to have that control. And what better to control than a full custom home for yourself and your family? And it's a really cool process. So anyways, just talking a little bit more there. And we talked a little bit last week on, deciding if custom home building is right for you. So if you didn't listen to that episode, a good one to reference back to and, kind of get a little bit more information there. I think jumping into the next point, number two would be selecting a builder, right? So you've decided that custom home building is right for you. Now is the time to go shop for builders, right? And some of these things, like Brian mentioned, they can be concurrent. So they can also kind of go in different orders. So it's not set in a hard fast rule that number two is always going to search for your builder. But our our theory and our experience is that the sooner you can rope a builder into this whole process, the better, because they're meant to be a consultant for you. They're meant to help shed some light on things and really bring an outside perspective to people that maybe don't know as much about home building, and even to the architect. It's a good thing to have a builder roped in before you get to that design phase. So that's why we believe that even selecting a builder sometimes before you go pick a lot, right? A builder can give a lot of valuable insight on certain lots and things that might make something cheaper or more expensive throughout the build. So, what are your thoughts there, Brian?
I would add that the longer you wait to find the builder that you believe in, you trust, you are confident in, you're excited to work with, the more of a chance there is for um, unintended delays or going back and doing work that's already been done. To your point, right? And we found that if you come to the builder with a floor plan and a lot and say, hey, build this house for me, they might say, look, there's a better way to do this. Let's redesign this because it's going to save you $100,000. Or we can do this and it's going to cut down on your timeline by 6 months, right? So that's why pulling in a builder earlier is always better. But the longer you wait, not saying that it's going to be uh, messy, but there's just a greater chance for some bumps in the road that we just have to work through. So
Yep, good point.
number three, which could be number one or number two or early on, is purchasing that lot, finding that dirt to put your custom home. So as Steven said, working with a builder before you have a lot is never a bad thing, never. But we understand many people have been sitting on their their lot for maybe years or even decades, and they're just waiting for the right time in their life to build that custom home. Totally get it, and that may be again why it might be the first thing you've done, but it's important to have a builder as early as possible to say, hey, where do we position this house on this lot to minimize costs or get it positioned right for a pool? Or there's a lot of different topics and things to address when we're talking about what house is going where on that particular lot, right?
Yep. Yep. That's all a lot of good stuff there. And yeah, I think a lot is something that, like you said, it can fall many different places in this timeline, but definitely something that you want to address sooner rather than later and know where you're going to build your home. And it's best to have the lot first and then design the home to the lot, especially for custom. Because a lot of times with custom homes, you're trying to capture some special feature, whether that's a view or you're on a lake or a river, or, there's topography on the lot or trees you want to protect, or utilities are better in one area than another, things like that. There's a lot of different things that go into that. And that's why a builder's perspective, roping the builder in before you even find a lot sometimes is advantageous. But not required, right? Like Brian said, if you've been sitting on a family lot for decades and it's something that you really want to build on, I mean, it's usually doable. But it's just, there's things that, it's advantageous to rope that builder in before you get to the lot purchase phase. But yeah, yeah, once you have a lot, I think the next step is number five, or are we on four? I think we're on four. Yeah, sorry. Number four is going to be designing with an architect and the builder and a designer, right? So, and we say all three of those because it really takes a team effort, and of course the client is going to be the one driving that conversation, but they need to have those other three parties involved, the architect, the builder, and the designer, so that everybody can put their 2 cents into it, right? Sometimes the designer might say, hey, look, I love what the architect's saying and the builder's saying, but you know what? We want to do wallpaper on this wall, right? Let's make sure it's not textured. Let's make sure it's smooth. It might make more sense to put the door over here so it doesn't mess with your wallpaper, things like that, right? So that's all the way down to the design. The architect, is going to have some cool ideas and help try to capture your inspiration photos or whatever things you come to the table with. And then, of course, it's up to the builder to try to pull all that together and be the connector of everything, right? To make sure that, yep, wallpaper would work on that wall. I love the way that the architects designed this, but just from what we've seen, it's cheaper to, they've gotten feedback, and making rooms smaller and hey, do this, do that, tweak things here and there. They've got their builder feedback that's going to help you really be able to value engineer, I think is kind of a term that, most builders like to throw around. And yeah, that's really what they're there for, right? Try to help you get the most value out of this home that you're designing. So
the important piece here is that there is a cohesive team that works really well together, and this will pay massive dividends later in terms of just the smoothness of the progression of the build, in terms of the architect is working with all four parties: the architect, the designer, the builder, and the homeowners are all working together to achieve that goal of the vision that you have for every corner, every inch of that build. And if you can do that, it will make things a lot smoother and give you more confidence fairly early on in the process that, hey, this is going to come to life exactly how I want it to. So good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Let's move on to number 5, because that's a beast. This one is certainly a topic that deserves its own episode, as we've said on a lot of different topics thus far. So we're certainly not short on things to talk about as we expand this. But what's number 5?
Yeah, so number 5 is going to be a preliminary building agreement. Now, that can look a lot of different ways for a lot of different builders, right? But we've found success in, doing the legwork up front to find out a lot more information about a client's build, right? Before we even get to numbers or design, like truly selecting things and all that kind of stuff, right? Before you get into the nitty gritty, us as builders, we want to know a lot more about your project, right? And the way that that is best captured is through a preliminary building agreement, or what some people abbreviate that to as a PBA, right? So if you ever hear us refer to it as a PBA, that is a preliminary building agreement. And like I said, every builder is a little bit different, but we've found some good success with this. So a PBA is basically going to cover the phase of the building where we're going through. The architect has already finalized the plans. The clients have signed off on those plans. The designer has put their input onto basically the exterior design for the most part. And the builder has, basically put their soft stamp on the plans to say, yep, let's push this forward. So then you go into that PBA, or the preliminary building agreement, where we're going to work with engineers. We're going to work with the takeoff and estimating companies. We're going to work with all of our trades and vendors and suppliers to go out and do the legwork up front. And before the build even starts, anybody breaks ground, before permitting is approved, to know exactly what that build is going to look like from a cost perspective and a time perspective. So we do that legwork. Some builders don't do it that way, but we've seen good success. So, Brian, I'm sure I'm missing a lot there. So go ahead and fill in the listeners.
You covered the majority of it. I think that's important, is that it really is touching every single trade that we either intend to use or might use on your house, because we have a database of hundreds to make sure that we are achieving the budget and the timeline and the quality. And so, yes, the preliminary building agreement goes into all that. That is, to the deliverable of the PBA is a fixed price contract for us. We know other builders may do it differently, as well as a timeline of that build. and we turn that over to you saying, here's what your build is going to cost with appropriate allowances for those selection items. And here is the timeline it's going to take to complete your home. And the preliminary building agreement is not free. Obviously, we have costs in that to work with engineers to engineer the foundation, engineer the frame, and do a lot of other work to organize all of that information. But it's a really important step, and something that our clients that have done this with us have really appreciated, to just have this information, have so much information up front before the build even starts. One other important point to take here is at this point, you could still essentially go to a different builder with the deliverable of this project. You're not tied to any one builder because they have gone and done the engineering work. It's just hey, there's work that has to be done to give the homeowner confidence that this is how much this is going to cost, or this is the scope of this project, and this is what it entails. If this work has not been done and a builder is telling you those things, they're using rough estimates based off of their experience or history, and that can be really tough to just feel confident. It can be hard to feel confident in those numbers. So in a nutshell, that's what the PBA entails. Again, that certainly deserves its own episode, so we'll get into that in a future episode. Moving on to number 6 is a building agreement or a building contract. What does that look like, Stephen?
Yeah, so, like Brian said, the deliverable at the end of that PBA or that preliminary building agreement is for us to provide the clients with a fixed price building contract, right? And like we said, not everybody's doing fixed price. Some builders are doing cost plus. But really, that's the next step in this process, is a builder to present a building contract, whether that's fixed price or cost plus, to the clients, and come to an agreement on that contract, right? So has the builder done all that legwork? Has the builder, built other homes right around the corner? I mean, how are they coming up with these numbers? And that's a good thing for, clients and future homeowners to ask those questions, right? How did the builder derive at these numbers that they're putting in the initial building agreement, and in the timeline as well, right? How can they feel confident, and how can the clients feel confident in their answers, right? If they've gone out and done all that legwork of the preliminary building agreement, it should be an easy answer, right? But if the builder says, well, we built another home in a different city and it came in at this price and it was pretty similar home, that's not your home. That's not your lot, right? So there's a lot of different variables there that, you just need to question and be aware of, and right. But if you've done the right job on selecting a builder and you feel good about the products they've designed and done, and, they have a good reputation and come highly referred, I think you can feel a little bit better about going into that building agreement. But of course, once again, disclaimer, we are not lawyers, legal. We have no legal background. Please consult anytime you're going to sign a contract or an agreement. Make sure you know what you're signing and be very aware. Read through it, be fully informed, make sure that the other party is fully informed and informing you, and then, seek legal counsel if you feel you need to. Brian?
I think you covered that well. Let's move on. That certainly there's more to cover there, but at a high level, that's really the gist of a building agreement. The next step, or what's going on, you could argue concurrently, is the financing piece. So how is this home going to be financed? Are you bringing cash? If so, that's much faster to move forward with. But many people do come with a construction loan, and that's perfectly fine. But the banks take time. It takes time to work on a construction loan. That can take anywhere from 1 to 3 months in terms of paperwork and setting up closing. So we like to do the financing or the construction loan after we have provided a fixed price number, so that you can confidently go to the bank and say, this is how much this is going to cost, and get a loan for that amount. So when the construction loan closes, we'd like to quickly move forward with construction. So we want to have all of that pre-construction work basically done before the construction loan closes, because most lenders or banks give a construction loan a 12-month term. Now, there's a possibility for extensions if actual construction goes beyond 12 months, but that's why we don't like to sign off or start a construction loan earlier than we really need to. So again, a lot of work that goes into pre-construction where you don't need a construction loan. So Stephen, what else did I miss on the financing piece?
Yeah, yeah, I think that sums it up well. And every bank is going to be unique in their own way, right? We found good success with working with local credit unions. They usually get the best rates and have fair, reasonable terms. But, I mean, Brian mentioned some specifics there, and we can cover a lot more on another episode. Maybe we could even get, one of our partner banks or somebody like that to shed some more light on this topic. But financing really is unique to the buyer and to the lender. So, without getting into the nitty gritty, we can say that, yeah, it usually takes about a month or so. And we'll cover these timelines here in a little bit at the end of the episode, just to recap. But, the appraisal, certain other things, if you're getting a loan, can extend that timeline. So, yeah, no, I think that's well said. So moving on to the next point, number 8 is going to be permitting and approvals. So at this point, you've got your preliminary building agreement. The builder's done all the legwork of doing all the design and the architects and all the other stuff that needs to come together for permitting. Sometimes, local jurisdictions are going to have different requirements. So some people can even skip this step if they're building out in a rural area and there's no jurisdiction that governs, the building there. So, yeah, permitting and approvals can look a lot different in a lot of different areas. But where we typically build, permitting is something that you want to have all your ducks in a row. You want to be basically ready to build and start breaking ground as soon as those permits get approved, because sometimes permits have a time cap on them as well, and they like to see homes getting built, not just be sitting around the neighborhood or the community or the city that almost look like they're just abandoned construction. So, yeah, what are your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, I think I would just want to reiterate that these are steps. A lot of these are happening concurrently, and the permitting and approval side is happening concurrently, most likely with the financing on that loan. And it's spanning a few of these because we want to make sure that obviously we have made the right exterior selections for what the local jurisdiction requires, whether that's a neighborhood requirement or a city requirement on a lot of different things. Dark sky compliant lights, or how certain garages face direction, or where the house is positioned. So there's a lot of things, but I think it's just important to note that permitting and approvals is happening right around this point, obviously, and certainly before actual construction begins, because if we don't have the permits where it's required, we can't move forward.
Yep.
And the most
cool.
fun.
Yeah, you want to take
the most fun topic.
Yeah.
What's this one, Stephen?
Yeah, taking it into after all of this, right? We've got 8 steps leading up to this. Now, number 9 is going to finally be breaking ground and starting construction on your new home. So I think, the biggest eye opener, hopefully thus far, is the tremendous amount of work that goes into a home before you even start building. So when builders tell you, hey, it's going to be, we're talking 8 to 16 months to build, or whatever builder throws out, right? Well, what does that include, right? Please inform me on what all is involved in the build time that you're quoting us, right? Is that pre-construction? Is that just building? Because you can see there's a lot that leads up to construction. But to sum it up, number 9, construction. Construction is going to look a lot different, depending on where you're building in the country and also what product you're building, right? Are you building a 2,000 square foot home, or are you building a 20,000 square foot home, right? So construction can be as small or as big, or simple or complex as the build is, right? And as the lot is, and all the other variables that come with it. So without getting too deep into that, yeah, that's what comes next, right? In construction, most builders should give you a time frame or a timeline of just at least general phases throughout your build, right? First is going to be clearing the lot, and then foundation, and blah blah blah. We can go through that in more detail, but that's the fun part where you start to finally get to see progress and see your home coming up before your own eyes.
I think that's a really important point, is just where we are. We've laid out, you could argue, 10, 11 steps here. And number 9 is starting construction. So the takeaway is there is just a lot of work that goes into a build that you don't see any progress for practical purposes, right? You don't see anything really happening. You know things are happening, or you better know things are happening, but you're not seeing that dream or that vision that you've been waiting for come to life until we get all the way down to step number 9. So, important point.
Yep. Hit us with number 10.
Number 10, closing and handover. So this is another exciting one. This is where we get to hand over the keys to you and say, hey, this home is complete, within budget and on schedule is the goal. And you get to take the keys and be the homeowner of your dream home. So this one is always an exciting day. We like to do a lot with this, and just make it memorable, because it is a big day, and we're grateful and appreciative to be a part of your special day of taking over the keys to your dream home.
Yep, love that. Yeah, and as we have outlined, everything that has led up to that closing and handover day makes it that much more special, right? All the decisions and the time that it took, and some ups and downs. Every build has their ups and downs, right? But all of that makes it so much more rewarding to go to the closing table or do handover day, and literally hand the keys over to the new homeowners of their home, right? And it's it's a really sentimental, special, cool day. And honestly, as maybe cheesy or corny as it sounds, is why we do this, right? We don't build homes just for fun. We build them so that families can move in and turn those houses into homes. So that's something we never lose perspective of, and any good builder, I think, would say the same thing. So look for a builder that takes that kind of pride in their products, and realizes the end goal. They're not just building houses. They're building truly a home that they can be proud of, and a new family is going to move into and love. So, I think that sums that up pretty well. And there's other stuff that goes with closing, but overall, I think most people know what closing is, right? You sign documents, legal things, deed transfers, and you're the rightful new owner of that home. So, moving on to maybe the last and kind of a bonus item is after you move in. There's the move in, of course. Once closing happens, homeowners are free to move in as soon or as long as they like, as fast, as quickly, get settled into that new home. And then, of course, I don't think any builder has ever in history built a perfect home. So there's warranty that's involved after move in. So warranty can look a lot of different ways for a lot of different builders. And, that's something that you want to be aware of for sure as you're partnering with a builder on your build. Ask what their warranty process is before you get to the end and the closing table, right? But yeah, definitely something to be aware of. But that's kind of our little bonus item there at the end, is just covering warranty. So, Brian, anything to add there? And then I just want to say that it might be kind of fun to go back through each one of these steps just real quick, kind of rapid fire, and give a rough timeline for each, and then hit them with the total timeline of all this stuff at the end, just to put it into perspective, right? We've talked about a lot of good stuff here, but we haven't really put timing to it. So I think that's something we owe the viewers or the listeners as we wrap this up. So anything to add on that last point?
Yeah, just around warranty. There is no perfect home that has ever been built. And that the most important thing is that you understand what that warranty entails, and certainly ask your builder, first of all, if they have a warranty, and we highly recommend that they should, or they do. And if they don't offer that, that would be a red flag for us. But really just understanding it, right? A lot of people can say, oh, you got a warranty, but you don't often get into the details of understanding it and until you need it. So just we have a nice packet we present and provide that we think makes it pretty straightforward. So just something else to think about. But yeah, let's jump into the timeline of this and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, yeah, because we are a little over time, but I feel like this was a lot to cover, and hopefully we're providing enough value that people are still sticking around. So, yeah, number one, deciding on a custom home. I'll do this, and then you tell us kind of the timeline. So, number one, deciding on a custom home.
Yeah, that can be, it can be a few seconds or it could be many years. So we didn't really quantify a time to that.
Yep, nice. Number two, selecting a builder.
Same thing, right? You may have had a builder in mind for forever, or you might go through that and it takes a few months or a few years. It's hard to quantify a time for that as well.
Yep, that's fair. Number three, purchasing a lot.
I'd say similar. I'll answer that the same way. The lot can happen very quick, or you may already have it, right? So it doesn't eat up any time, or it might take quite a bit of time to find that perfect lot of what you want where you want to be.
Yep, absolutely. Number four, designing with an architect, builder, designer, bringing the whole team together.
Yep, perfect. So we're getting into where we can start to quantify, but every single one of these, there is no specifics, right? It's always going to have a range. So we like to say architects, from our experience, the fastest they've ever turned something around is about 4 months, 3 to 4 months, but this can easily expand over a year, depending on how fast you move, how fast they move. If you have made changes or are still trying to decide on what you like, so range of 4 to 12 plus months.
Yep. Number five, the preliminary building agreement that we discussed.
Yeah,
if a builder's doing that, the way that we're familiar with, how long can we expect there?
Yeah, our preliminary building agreement that we do at Brevin Homes with the engineering takeoffs to understand how many pieces of components we need to build that home, doing the legwork and reaching out to all of our suppliers and contractors. We complete that in roughly 2 to 3 months, depending on the project, of course. Sometimes it may take a little longer than 3 months.
Awesome. Yeah, number six, that building agreement and contract, coming to an agreement on that.
Yeah, that typically is fairly quickly. That can take days, maybe a week. And that's going on concurrently. We're getting that prepared and ready to go while we're finishing the preliminary building agreement.
Yep, nice. Number seven, financing.
Financing, that's also something that can be done simultaneously or concurrently, but that takes roughly 1 to 2 months, assuming that you found the right lender and there's communication going both ways to process all the paperwork and documentation that's needed.
Yep, lots of paperwork. Number eight, permitting and approvals.
Yeah, permitting and approvals, again, it's one that can be done at the same time as, say, the loan and some other things, but this is heavily dependent on the city or jurisdiction. But we're talking, the shortest we've seen is 3 to 4 weeks. And we should say, depending on if you're in a city that has some really strict codes, it could be 6 plus months, right? But where we build, and in most of, I'd say, Central Texas, it's 1 to 3 months. But I don't want to set the expectations wrong for people that are building in, say, the city of New York. I don't know how complex it is to pull permits there, but I can't imagine it's as short as a 1 month process.
Yep. Yeah, good point. Okay, number nine, construction, the beast. What would you say
construction, there? If we say that construction starts after all of that and we're moving dirt on day one and getting the foundation or the lot prepped and clearing and getting it set to actually start building the foundation, and again, heavily dependent on the project and the scope and the size, but this can be anywhere from 8 months on the short end if it's a smaller home, and pretty straightforward in terms of the scope of what needs to be done, up to 18 plus months, right? We put 8 to 18 because most of our projects are in that range, but if you're building a 20,000 square foot house on a cliff, it's probably going to take longer than 18 months. So again, a wide range, but just trying to give you a ballpark.
Hmm. Yeah, we should put a huge asterisk next to that one because, yeah, weather, several other unknowns can come into factor pretty big there and kind of throw that for a wrench. But yeah, I think you did a good job there. Number 10, closing handover
Yeah,
day.
of course, closing, that is a set day. That is something that we do everything in our power to meet once we've locked that closing date in place. And yeah, that takes a day, right? That's an exciting day and something that we live for. We're not in business just to make houses. I mean, we wake up in the morning and get excited to be able to have as many closing days as we can because we love being able to share that time and that memory with our homeowners and our families.
Yep, well said. Yeah, it's a rewarding day for everybody. Just all the like we've said so many times, but all the resources put into that process is really, really a fun day. So,
Yep.
okay, I think without warranty involved in there, since that was kind of a bonus, and that can look a lot different for a lot of different builders. What are we talking total here? Let's add all that stuff up for the listeners that aren't, pen and paper or calculator in hand.
Yeah, good question. It's hard to uh, throw this out there because the range is so wide, but you're talking 14, 15 months up to 2 to 3 years. And so that's again, a very wide range, but I think most people come into it with the expectation that I can build a custom home faster than they actually can in reality. And that's really the message or the takeaway here. And it's not, again, to scare people off. It's strictly just to make sure that you know what you're getting into as early on as possible so that your expectations are set right and you can enjoy the process. One of the big reasons we decided to start this podcast is because we want people to really enjoy the custom home building process. And all too often, every single day, people are stressed, they're anxious, they don't enjoy the process of building their custom home, even if they love their builder, right? There's just so much that goes into it.
Mm-hmm. I think a couple quick words to try to summarize that is we want transparency, to provide transparency to set potential custom home clients set their expectations right. So that transparency to set the correct expectations is a way to sum that up, right? And I think an even bigger asterisk, whatever, next to this total timeline, that there should be a negative or a minus under the 15 months, and there should be a plus over the 34 months, right? Because just like you said, I mean, if somebody comes with land already in hand and a plan set and a builder that they've already shopped, that cut out all that stuff, right? You can strictly condense this timeline. And then on the other hand, too, I mean, people that just, know that they take longer to make decisions and they want it to be perfect or, like we said, it's not perfect, but, complex builds can take years, 34 months sounds like a long time, but I mean, shoot, there's some 20,000 square foot homes on cliffs, like you said, that can take upwards of 3+ years, so, every build is going to be different. Every jurisdiction is going to be different. And so that's why that's such a huge asterisk there. But yeah, I mean, anything you can think of that we missed on this episode, I think we should wrap it up since we're pushing the time. But this has been a fun one for sure.
No, nothing else. Just hopefully we've given some insights and perspective on at a very high level again on just what steps are needed to build a custom home. It's not just, oh, here's a floor plan that I like and some front elevations and let's start building. There's just so much that we believe is not out there in terms of educating homeowners, and that's what we're trying to accomplish in this episode amongst as well as obviously the entire podcast. But wanted to start here, stay high level, and in future episodes we'll dive into a lot of these topics in more detail. So Stephen, I'm good. It's been a pleasure, and we'll wrap it up until next time.